Question number 8, Julianne Genter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Trade and asks, will he release the final text of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement before it is approved by Cabinet? If not, why not?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Trade, it's important to note, firstly, the Trans-Pacific Partnership is still under negotiation at this time. Now, should the negotiations be successful, the Government would release the text after New Zealand's initial signature of the proposed agreement, which requires approval by Cabinet. The Government will not be releasing the text before that point because the negotiations will not be formally concluded until the member countries have in fact signed the text. Once that negotiation phase is complete, TPP, as with all trade agreements, will therefore go through the full parliamentary treaty examination process, where of course the text will be available.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Julianne Genter.
Given that the Government won't be releasing the text before signing us up to the deal, will he release the national interest analysis, which spells out the advantages and disadvantages for New Zealand of this agreement, before the Cabinet approves it? And if not, why not?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Trade, I think the member misunderstands the process by which these things go through. She suggests that Cabinet will ratify the agreement. Cabinet does not. In fact, Parliament ratifies the agreement. And, of course, the national interest analysis is laid in front of the Parliament, and the Parliament debates a treaty such as this before it is ratified.
Supplementary question, Julianne Genter.
Was Jerry Brownlee correct when he said the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement would give New Zealand a, quote, $5 billion year-on-year boost to our export economy, unquote?
Order. I'm sorry, I'm going to ask the member to repeat that question again. I'm having trouble hearing it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Was Jerry Brownlee correct when he said the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement would give the New Zealand economy a $5 billion year-on-year boost, given the Australian Productivity Commission's report found trade agreements were usually oversold and failed to deliver the claimed benefits?
Order. I have a point of order. The right honourable Winston.
Mr. Speaker, you asked for the question to be put again. The member put it again, and this time about 5 minutes has talked all the way through it. We couldn't hear what on earth she was trying to ask in that second time round either.
Order. Every member has a right to hear the supplementary. If a member's telling me that he didn't hear it the second time, I ask members to please be quiet while we hear it for a third time without interjection. Julianne Genter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Was Jerry Brownlee correct when he said the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement would give New Zealand a, quote, $5 billion year-on-year boost to our export economy, given the Australian Productivity Commission's report finding that trade agreements were often oversold and failed to deliver their claimed benefits?
Order. Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Trade, I find Jerry Brownlee to be a very wise man. And I would disagree with the Australian Productivity Commission on this basis, and that is, it is quite clear, Mr. Speaker, for example, that the China-New Zealand FTA has been of huge benefit to this country, greater than actually was expected at the time, Mr. Speaker. And there has been a lot of talk in this House about lifting people's incomes this afternoon, and free trade agreements are definitely one way in which that can be done, and done very successfully.
Point of order.
Point of order. Julianne Genter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The question did quite specifically ask about the claim that there would be a $5 billion year-on-year boost to the economy.
The question was addressed. If the member wants further supplementaries, she has them.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Julianne Genter.
Why is the Government continuing to rely on the figures sourced from the East-West Center, a U.S. Congress-funded think tank, to justify the alleged benefits of the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement to New Zealanders?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Trade, that a horrible US Congress, a subversive organisation, why would we ever rely on anything it ever said? Mr. Speaker, the important point is this, that actually the negotiations have not been concluded. So anybody's estimate at this point is an estimate. Should those negotiations be completed, and for the sake of lifting wages and growth in this country, we should all hope that they are, then there will be a national interest analysis that is laid upon the table in this Parliament, and the Parliament will get to assess the value as calculated by the New Zealand government bureaucracy. And that is the way in which it should be done. In the meantime, we're all talking about estimates because the agreement has yet to be finally negotiated.
Supplementary question, Julie Ann Genter.
How can New Zealanders have confidence that the TPPA will be a good deal for us when he won't release the national interest analysis until after we're already signed up to the deal? He's relying on figures from a think tank funded by the United States government, and the major beneficiary of trade deals with the United States has always been multinational corporations based in the United States.
There we go.
Order. Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Trade, I think we've all learnt something in that last supplementary question. The reality is this, Mr Speaker, I'll take it again a little bit more slowly for the member. The agreement has not been negotiated yet. The agreement is being negotiated at the moment. Mr Norman, nobody knows until the negotiations are completed. We have estimates from different groups which the member has. At the point where the negotiation is completed, just like in every other government that has been in this Parliament, it will be laid upon the table and actually it will be debated by this Parliament. There's not many days to go until we know whether this thing will be proceeding or not. At that point, Parliament will get the opportunity to go ahead.
Point of order.
Point of order, Julie Ann Genter.
I seek leave to table for the benefit of the Minister the Australian Productivity Commission analysis showing there's little economic benefit to regional trade
Can I just
agreements.
clarify the source of the document? Is it available on the net?
Productivity Commission report.
I didn't ask what the report was. I asked where the member source is. Is it available on the net?
I don't think the Minister's
Is it available on the net for all members?
It's available.
Yes, it is. Supplementary question, the Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr Speaker, in the absence of greater openness and transparency around the negotiations, what guarantee, when you've finished, Nick Smith, what guarantee can the Minister provide?
Point of order, Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, my understanding is that the supposition at the start of that member's question has probably created a disorder in the House.
And the best way forward, the member's right in raising the point that he does. I'll invite the member to ask his question again, and then the Minister will have the opportunity to respond to that question in the way he sees fit. Honourable Phil Goff.
Were you ruling that that was a fair point of order? Because I don't see how you could.
Order. I was saying to the member the best way forward is for the Honourable Phil Goff to be able to complete his question. I have no doubt the Minister will have the ability to then address the question. Honourable Phil Goff.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In the absence of greater openness and transparency around the negotiation itself, what guarantee can this Minister provide the House that the TPP will not prevent New Zealand being able to legislate for the public good in areas like health and the environment, and will not prevent Pharmac from negotiating to buy lower-priced and generic drugs?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Trade, I completely reject the assertion at the start of that member's sentence. The reality is that this government has adopted an identical process to that operated by the Labor Party. The member raises the CTU on regular occasions in public as the one difference. The reality is they walked out on being advised. They walked out and they've been invited back by the Minister of Trade any time they like. The process has been identical to Mr Coff's process. He is the pot calling the kettle black.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order. Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr Speaker, the question asked the Minister what guarantee could he provide about two areas. He didn't even attempt to answer that.
If the member had just asked that question, I might be able to help him, but he talked to me at the start of his screen about the absence of openness and transparency. The Minister then responded to that part of the question.
Well, point of order, Mr Speaker. That wasn't part of the question. That was setting out the context of it. The question was about guarantees.
I invite the member to reread his hands out. I heard it as part of the question. Question number 9, Te Urara Flavel.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Kia ora